right, I have a little bit of a different type of game for today. It's not a solo game. This is a two-player only game, and it's sort of the little sister of Agricola. It's called All Creatures Great and Small. And the reason why I thought I would pull this particular game out is because one comment that I kind of see recurring a lot on a lot of the, the websites and the forums is, man, I wish my wife or my girlfriend would like to play games as much as I do. And I kind of see it reflected as well with kids. How do I get my kids to love games and to want to play games with me? I think I'm probably like most people in that I don't get to play as often as I would like with my gaming group. I do have a few friends who love board games. Unfortunately, we are all, working with kids, and so getting together for long chunks of time just doesn't happen as much as it used to. So, I don't know, maybe I get together with my gaming friends once every month or two to play one or two games. And in the meantime, I'm usually stalking my family, saying, you want to play, you want to play, you want to play? And I was thinking, wow, so what can you do to get your wife or your girlfriend to sit down and play a game with you? And again, this is just me talking. I don't want to suggest that I speak for all women everywhere. But for me, I know one of the biggest impediments to playing a game is mental exhaustion, especially learning a game. You have to be in the right mood, or I have to be in the right mood to learn a game, because it takes mental power. And honestly, usually on a Thursday at 9:30, I am done. I am in bed with a book. I do not want to play a game, okay? If you want me to play a game with you, you have to set the mood. And I'm not talking candlelight and champagne. That's a whole nother mood. I'm talking about helping facilitate the environment for gameplay. I find what's really effective for me is to have my husband say, hey, if I do the dishes, do you want to play a quick game? Or I'm going to go put the kids down. You want to set up a game for me? Take something off of my hands, free up some time at night. And I'm much more willing to say, ooh, it's 8:30 and I'm done with my day. I've taken care of the kids and run the laundry and paid the bills and the kitchen's clean. Yeah, actually, I think I would like to play a game. As opposed to, I finish all of my tasks and all of my chores and it's late at night and now, really, now you want to do something? It's just not going to happen. So my first tip is to set the mood. Help out beforehand so that you can free up a chunk of time when your wife or your girlfriend isn't, on her last legs. My second tip is to pick an easy, open, quick playing game, especially to teach. And that's where I think All Creatures Great and Small comes in. This is it's not a cooperative game, but it's not a direct battle conflict game. Again, that's a certain type of mood. And I much prefer these softer, gentler, sort of indirect competitive games. All right. The other great thing about this one is it plays open. Okay. There's no hidden cards. There's no hidden agenda. Everything's on the table to see. It makes it much easier to give strategy tips, to explain rules. You're not going through the whole game thinking, oh, I'm going to do this. Put your card down and be told, actually, you can't do that. You've just invalidated the last hour of play that you've been, going toward. So it makes it much easier to teach when you have what I think of as an open game. Okay? Set the mood, pick a simple game, an open game with a short play window. We're not talking a 3-hour mage night, castle siege here. And the last thing that I would say is to pick a game, again, that's the theme is very accessible, okay? I happen to like science fiction stuff. I'm a bit of a nerd girl, I guess. So, you know, I don't mind Eminent Domain or something with battles and aliens and things like that. But if that's not an area of familiarity, you know, if gene stealers and space marines are not something that turns you on, well, something, you know, more familiar and sweet maybe might be the way to go. My kids adore this game. Like, I have to hide this, okay? If my children see this on a counter, they will say, Mom, let's play, and I'll have to play with them. So this is one, if I ever feel like gaming, I just put this on the table and they will come to me. They love the little animals and making a farm, and just the theme of this game is really appealing to them. So pick a nice, gentle, accessible theme. Nothing where you have words you can't pronounce, okay? And characters you don't even understand. Go with something approachable, okay? The last thing I would say is pick a game that is a springboard game, right? This particular one opened up a whole realm of games for my family in the worker placement genre. We never actually got Agricola. This sort of scratches that itch. We moved on to Stone Age, which is a really fun worker placement game. And I think if you wanted to, you could even try like Lords of Waterdeep, or you know, put a fantasy spin on it. There's a worker placement is a huge genre for games. So if you invest in an inexpensive, quick little 2-player worker placement, and you can entice your significant other to play, and they like it, you can easily build on that base. On the other hand, if you play the worker placement game and it isn't your cup of tea, it isn't engaging enough, you can immediately say, hey, you know what? I think we might like more conflict, or we might like something more aggressive, or worker placement isn't for us. You haven't invested in a giant box with a giant price tag. So I like this game for all those reasons. So I'm gonna walk you through really quick how it plays, and then I'm going to leave it on my counter and see what happens this afternoon. I pretty much guarantee you'll probably be seeing a playthrough with one of my girls. My only hope is that they don't both see it, because then we have to like Rochambeau to see who gets to play it. So let me pull it out and set it up real quick and show you what this cute, simple, sweet little 2-player game is all about. So here it is, the entire game board for all creatures great and small. Okay, let me first off apologize by saying this is a typical Oregon day. We are going between intense sunshine and pouring rain. So I am not responsible for the lighting or the shadows or anything else that happens. And I'm sorry, just out of my control. But for all creatures great and small, you have a center board that everybody plays off of, and this is where all the resource and your little worker placements go. Looks a little confusing. What's fabulous about this game is only one person has to understand it, all right? Only one person has to know what all these crazy symbols are. Because once all of the tokens are placed on the board, it becomes very, very simple to figure out, very intuitive. The only hard part is knowing what to place where, but only one of you has to really understand that, okay? So half of the game is played here on the resource board. So I'm gonna set that aside for now, because the other half of the game is your own personal farm. You each start off with the same farm board, all right? So we really only need one of these. That's right, this is all you get to start the game. How easy and unintimidating is that, okay? To go with it, you pick if you want to be blue or red. Take blue for now. And these 3 markers, these are your workers. You get 3 actions every turn. And you place them on the big giant game board to show what you want to do. All right, that's it. Easy peasy, right? So your little farm here, this is where you're going to house your animals. So half of the game is getting your farm ready to hold all of the animals you're going to be recruiting and breeding, okay? And the person at the end of the game with the most animals is the winner. Simple as that. So, hello puppy. What are you a farmer of? Well, you can make adorable little sheep, little cows, horses, and my kids' favorite, pigs. How adorable are these little meeples? They're wonderful wood little meeples. You can stand them up in your field, but I think I'll put them face down just because of where the camera is for this. And you place them in these little pastures and they multiply and grow, and you have to make more space for them. So there's a little bit of space management that goes on in this game as well. But as you can see, it's totally, totally adorable. Right, so you start the game with a little cottage down here. And the cottage has these little yellow bars around them. And in all creatures great and small, these bars are what are known as fences. All right. So your cottage comes enclosed. That makes sense, right? The rest of these pastures are going to be open fields. Okay. So what you're trying to do, if you put an animal in an open field, it will just run off and you will lose it. All right. In order to keep your animals, you must enclose your pasture. All right. So the side of your cottage counts as one of the walls you need. So you don't need to build another wall. That's redundant, okay? The cottage starts as a wall. So as soon as I make a pasture, I am allowed to host 2 animals of the same variety. So for example, I could put 2 cows in there. All right. You cannot mix animals. So for example, I would not be allowed to put a cow and a pig in there. Can't do that. So you'll see right away that this is an inefficient use of fencing, right? I could have easily built a much larger pasture and saved myself a fence. And I can now place 4 cows in this pasture. All right. Simple enough. Well, almost. There's one last thing we can do to enhance our pasture hold, and that's put in this cool little feeding trough. It just looks like a little house, okay? What's neat about the feeding trough is it can work alone, okay? So this field will not hold a pig. My little piggy will run away, all right? But if I put a feeding trough down, one animal will stay in your unfenced pasture. Just one, okay? So I can get 1 pig in there, all right? Now, if I fence it, like so, what'll happen is that feeding trough will double the amount of animals I could keep in that pasture, okay? So it's a fenced pasture, which means 2. It has a feeding trough, which means 4. So I can now stick in there 4 piggies. And if you don't have room to put 4 of these cute little piggies in, usually my kids find a way to jam them in, but I don't have the time or the patience for that. They do have these cool little cardboard taggies that you can use instead, all right? So this feeding trough, if I was to move it to my cow pasture, it would work for both squares, right? It works for the entire enclosed space. So instead of holding 4 cows, I'm going to multiply by 2. I can now hold 8 cows, okay? So you can see how these little pastures are a great way to use your space efficiently, okay? The last place you can hold animals, because I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, I'm going to film this up really fast. How long does this game take? Well, the last thing you can do is buildings, all right? We start with a cottage, and down here in the corner, there's a little number 1 in red, all right? And what that means, I don't know if you can see that or not, is simply you can hold 1 animal in this building. We like to think of it as a house pet. And again, for some reason, it's always the pig. So our cottage can hold 1 animal, okay? 1 animal only. You can move them around. So I could decide, well, maybe I want to put my pigs with my other pigs. I think I'm going to move in one of my cows. Totally legit. So you can move your animals around the squares on your turn any way you want, okay? You just can't mix them, right? So I can't add my pig to my cow pasture. That's not allowed, okay? There are, fortunately, other types of buildings that you can buy in this game. For example, I could buy me a stall, all right? And you'll see right away that this stall can hold 3 animals. And I know what you're thinking. Does a feeding trough work in here? And the answer is yes. Yes, it does. So if I buy a stall and I add to it a feeding trough, I'm able to hold a whopping 6 animals in my stall. All right. So there's a bunch of really cool buildings that you can buy that give you abilities. One of them is it's a place to store animals. Okay. And again, they also count as fencing, right? So you kind of got to plan ahead. If you're going to buy a building, well, then maybe I shouldn't put a fence there. The only difficulty is a fence laid is a fence played. So once you place your fence, you cannot at a later point remove it. All right? So there is a lot of sort of pre-planning that goes into this. Thinking about where you're going to put your buildings, where you're going to put your fences. Because once down, you cannot undo it. Okay? And the last way you can expand your little farm is you can buy an expansion tile. All right? And I think there are 4 of these in the game. And once you purchase this, you just slip it onto your farm and you've got more space to work with. Just keep doing that. Shoop, slipping it on. You can slip it on either side if you like, right? So I could slip it on over here, as long as the road is connected, okay? All right, so that means you can't slip it down here or up top. You gotta keep them going in on the sides, all right? And I can expand my farm this way, okay? Now I believe if I remember right, there is a penalty in this game for unused land, okay? So if I expand my farm, but I don't end up fencing all of the land, I'll take a small penalty for that. And so you kind of have to be a bit parsimonious, a bit frugal with these expansions. Don't take more than you can use, all right? Even though it is tempting. But that's pretty much the basics of your personal farm. You're buying buildings, you're fencing in pastures, and then you're adding in animals, okay? And you add in animals one of 2 ways. You can recruit them from the main town, or you could have babies. And the way babies work is, as once you hit 2 animals of the same species, get out of there, pig, you don't belong there, they will produce 1 baby. Doesn't matter how many you have, okay? So even though I have 4 cows, I'm only going to produce 1 baby. Okay? Even though I have 5 pigs, I'm only going to produce 1 pig. And here's the tricky part. As soon as these are born, you have to place them. Okay? So let's say I have a situation like this. My cows have a baby cow. Okay. I have room for a house pet. I will stick it in my cottage. My pigs have a baby pig. Oh dear. I have nowhere to put this. Every spot is full. This piggy runs away. I used to say this piggy gets turned into bacon, but then my kids would cry and they wouldn't play with me. So don't say that. Just say the piggy runs away. Okay? Don't call it bacon or veal or a lamb chop. You might find it funny, but they won't. So you have to be thinking ahead. How many animals do I have? Are they going to have babies? And will I have somewhere to put them? Okay? And that's kind of it for your own personal farm. You're just making sure you have enough space for the animals you recruit and the animals that get birthed on your little farm. The rest of this game is played on the resource board. That one's a little trickier, so let's take a look at that. All right. So here's your central game board, and I've scooted over to get out of the sun here. Hopefully this will make it a little easier to see. And this is where all the action happens for recruiting and the worker placement part of the game. Remember I said only one person has to really understand all these symbols. It makes it a lot easier for playing the game. If one person really can set up for every round and sort of maintains the board. Okay. And let's see up here, these are your wood and stone resources. This deals with the fencing, which is probably the most important part of the game. This is where you recruit your animals, and this is where you pick up buildings, special buildings and feeding troughs. And I'm just going to zoom in a little bit here and take a peek at this little upper area to give you an idea of how this works, okay? So you'll see these little red arrows on some of the spaces, but not others, all right? These are round setup arrows, and part of the game is to just refresh this main playboard. And all you do is you take whatever you see in the icon display and you make that available for the round, okay? So here we would put 1 wood at the start of every turn into this forest, and at the start of every turn we would put 3 wood over here. All right. So if nobody takes this space, if nobody needs wood, then at the start of round 2, we would do the exact same thing. So now this space over here on the left is home to 2 wood. This space, sorry, over to the right now has 6. And every round it's going to grow and grow and grow, 1 on this side, 3 on that side, until somebody decides they need some wood. And they're going to get to pick, well, if they want the first player token, they would head over here. They would take all of the wood that's in the forest, as well as first player token, which can be male or female, which is kind of a cool touch. All right. Now, let's say they're not interested in being first player. Then, to get more bang for their buck, we're going to go over to this side of the wood, and they're going to take all of this, okay? And then at the start of the next round, 1 will go on this side and 3 will go on this side. Exact same thing here for your stone. Every round you're going to add 1 on this side, and you're going to add 2 on this side until somebody comes along and takes it. All right. So the resources kind of grow up here over time. So the longer you wait, potentially the more you can get. What I like is that there's always 2 spots, okay? Which means in a 2-person game, both people are going to get a chance at a resource. One's going to get more than the other, but they're both going to have a chance, okay? Some spots don't have these little red arrows. So for instance, this little icon here, all this says is whoever goes here is going to get 1 of each of these, okay? You don't have to put me there. You don't have to do any sort of a refill function. This is just a 1-use spot, all right? Same with here. This is how you build your fencing. There's no little red arrow. There's no setup. You just go here to build fences, okay? This little spot, however, with this little red arrow is probably the most important one for game mechanics. This is your timer, all right? This game plays out over 8 rounds. And the way you demark this is you take out 8 fencing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And what I like to do is I like to stick it right next to the board. Okay, right here. These are the 8 rounds of our game, okay? And at the start of every round, when we're refreshing all of these little resources, we're going to take 1 fence and put it here in the fence area, okay? So for an action, round 1, we're going to have 1 fence. In round 2, we'll have 3, or 2 fences. In round 3, we'll have 3. We'll keep going up. And for an action, someone can use this spot. And when they do, they get the wonderful expansion board, and they get to take all of the fencing that's in this fence field. They don't get to take this, right? These are our round countings. Just the stuff that's in the field. And when that last fence gets placed, that's the last round. When you don't have any more fencing on the side here, the game has ended. So this is how you just tick through how many rounds. So you got to remember every turn to put another piece of fence in the fence field. All right? And there's that little red arrow to remind you. Okay? The last thing that can be a little bit tricky is how you refill the animals. And again, only one person has to really understand this. But it's not that difficult. It really isn't. So you have all these different pastures where you can recruit animals. And you'll see one symbol plain and one symbol in parentheses. Okay? And what that means is the main symbol comes first. Okay? So on the first turn of the game, you're going to place one main symbol in all of these pastures. All right? So we're going to get, let's see, a reed, a pig, a cow, and a horse. All right? Put that one main symbol down. If someone wants, they can claim the space. So I could decide that I really want that pig. So for my turn, I'm going to take the pig. And red is going to wander off to other parts of the board, and they're not going to claim any animals. All right? So round one is over. It's time to refill the animal space. Okay? And the way this works is you check to see if the main symbol is still available. There's still a reed. So we're going to put down instead a parentheses. So we're going to add a sheep. I took the pig. So we're not going to add a sheep. We're just going to put down the main animal. We're going to put a pig out. But down here we still have a cow. So this space is going to get a pig. Come here, little piggy. This space has a horse, so we're just going to add sheep. Okay, so now red wants in on the action. Red is like, oh, now there's two animals. I'm going to take this one. Blue is still going for pigs, but hey, I can get a free cow, then I'm going to take this one. Assuming nobody else goes here, you can fill up all the spaces if you want. At the end of round, when it comes time to refill, we still have a reed, so we're going to add in a sheep. We have a pig, so we're going to add in a sheep. We have nothing here, so one cow will come back. We have nothing here, so one horse will come back. All right? So all it is saying, if the main icon is present, we use the parenthesis. So again, you have this, sort of growing accumulation of animals. So that's kind of a neat little game mechanic, but you have to remember every turn, you got the little red arrows to refresh this space. All right. So the start of every round, the board's going to look a little bit different. Okay. The last little quadrant over here, this is where you get all your buildings, and there are no round refresh arrows here. These are just do what they say. Once per action, you can spend 3 ore and 1 reed and buy yourself a stall. That's what that says. Here, you can get your feeding troughs. For every 3 wood you pay, you can get a feeding trough. Unlimited. So I couldn't pay 9 wood and get 3 feeding troughs if I like. Right? Here, also, I can turn my stalls into stables. And this is an interesting one. This is where you buy these special buildings, things like open stable or a shelter, these special buildings. But what's interesting about this place is that there are 2 spots here. Okay, this is not a single square. 2 people can go here. It could be 2 blue, it could be 2 red, but there are 2 openings down here for people to use. Okay. So the last thing to look at, I guess I kind of skipped over fencing, didn't I? Fencing's interesting because you start the game, like I said, with the 8 round marking fencings, right, on the side of the board. And each player starts with their own personal stash of 9 fences, okay? So here, where it says 1 wood equals fence, you're not taking a fence, okay? You're not doing that. This means you get to place a fence from your own stash. All right? For every wood you spend, you get to take one of your personal fences and place them on your farm. All right? Here it says if you take this space, you get to place 2 fences for free. You don't have to pay anything. And afterwards, for every 2 ore you pay, you get to put down another fence. Now you're not taking them, right? These are your own personal fences. If you run out of the 9 you start with, the only way to get more is here, is to play on this marker, and then you get to take however many are in this field. All right? So this doesn't mean take from the round supply. This means from your own personal supply. And that's the whole board. That's pretty much the entire game. Looks, like I said, it looks a little bit intimidating, but once you kind of understand what all the symbols mean, it's really simple. And it's open. There's no hidden cards. There's no hidden agenda. It's very easy to coach or teach someone and say, hey, if you get that trough, you're going to be able to double. You remember how many you can put here. Don't forget, your pigs are going to have a baby. You might want to think about investing in a stable. It's really easy to see the other player's board, what they need to do, and sort of help them out on what to pick next. And because you only have these little 8 turns up here, the game goes really quickly. It plays very, very quickly. So that's the whole game. You get 3 tokens here to play. You take whatever you've asked for, refill it, maintain your farm, and repeat. Cute, fun, simple little game. All right, let's see which child I can wrangle in to beat me at this so you could see a little bit of gameplay. And really, if an 8-year-old can do it, anybody can.